Siegel Theater Center here at the Graduate Center CUNY, and thank you for taking time out on that beautiful day that is happening here in New York. I hear some music, but maybe that's intended, yeah? No, it is not? Okay. You know, that was ridiculous. And we are here really truly celebrating a great movement of theater, a movement that really has influenced global theater, world theater. It was born in New York City, it's still ongoing. It's the Theater of the Ridiculous and the Ridiculous Theatrical Company. So a big applause for everybody who takes up here. And I would like to say thank you to John Jesseron, who also came to me and said, Frank, you have to do something about this. Everett, who worked really a lot with our team, Rebecca, everybody, also Black Eyed Susan, who is with us here, so maybe we do bridge academia and professional theater, international and American theater, and we are really truly honored and humbled that we were here there to show this evening, and thank you really all for coming out. Also welcome the Mabu Mines, so thank you for coming, and Living Theater is over there, and so it is, as you can see, such a significant evening. So I would like to ask Sean to give us, who has a book that is upcoming on Charles Ludlam and the Ridiculous Theater. So he's give us a 12 minute introduction about the world of the theater, since we do bridge academia and professional theater. So this is, you see it in action and emotion. Thank you, and then Everett will take over, and thank you all for coming, and I think this will be quite a unique and really significant evening. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Wow, microphone. It's so thrilling to see such a huge audience here for this, so thank you for coming. If you don't mind, for just a moment, imagine that you have the queer power to travel through and across time, backward, forward, side to side. You close your eyes and click your ruby slippers. No, your pony hair cha-cha heels. No, your patent leather fuck-me pumps. Well, whatever makes you feel fabulous. 1, 2, 3 times. In a flash, you are transported to the West Village of Manhattan in April 1970, where Charles Ludlam and his new Ridiculous Theatrical Company, or the RTC, are about to perform their play Bluebeard at a gay bar called Christopher's End. This dive is so named for its location at the far end of Christopher Street, though the double entendre is quickly evident. The bar is filthy and raucous and exciting. The playing space at Christopher's End is simply a collection of rickety boards laid across the bar with a painted drop of beakers and vessels, suggesting a mad scientist's lair. You are packed tightly into a crowd of young, handsome men, some in leather and all in dungarees. The men openly flirt and cling to each other lustfully. The spirit of the Stonewall riot hangs in the thick spring air, and the sparkle of disco is only taking shape on a distant, bandana-hued horizon. Disregarding any kind of union rules, for this is off Broadway, the play begins very, very, very late. The plot quickly descends into a depraved tale that unapologetically hurls Gothic horror against B-movies, wrapped around the core of Perrault's fairy tale, with Bartok's opera Bluebeard's Castle, Wells's Island of Dr. Moreau, and a dash of Marlowe's Faustus thrown in. This production collages sources liberally and sometimes violently into an exciting new work. As the titular character, Baron Canizar von Bluebeard, Ludlam leads the company, intensely committed to his dream of creating a third, gentler genital. He is brash and charismatic, boldly displaying an electric blue beard and eventually a nest of pubic hair dyed cobalt to match. The audience is enchanted, whooping at all the inside queer jokes and unafraid to break the fourth wall with a game of call and response, spurred on by a spirit of drunken revelry and Ludlam's occasional winks to the crowd. Although his troupe has gained a cult following over the past 3 years, this is just the beginning. I first discovered Charles Ludlam in an LGBTQ theater class during my doctoral work at Tufts University. I found Ludlam's plays, written in the style called the ridiculous, crass and raucous and esoteric. Plays like Turds in Hell, Bluebeard, Camille, and The Mystery of Irma Vep were confusing and brilliant, like nothing I had ever read or experienced in live performance. As I would come to find out, these characteristics are the very hallmark of the ridiculous style. My classmates largely disliked and dismissed the work as incoherent, but I was hooked. Soon after, I voraciously devoured Ludlam's 29 plays from a tattered volume that I found in the basement of a used bookstore. Sadly, I was only 7 when Ludlam passed away. And growing up on a potato farm in northern Maine, I never had the opportunity to see him perform live, let alone access to any professional theaters. Not to pretend that I would have understood his plays as a child. Soon after reading the plays, as well as David Kaufman's incredible biography, Ridiculous, I knew that as a scholar and an artist and as a gay man, I longed to become part of what I realized was a secret, elusive, and exclusive club, the ridiculous tradition. I was even more surprised to find that so little scholarly work was available on Ludlam and his plays, but I also understood how his work could be challenging and difficult to access. Charles Ludlam was queer, a queer. He was a playwright, an actor, a director, a designer, a painter and essayist, as well as a control freak, a diva, a liberator, a homeopath, an inventor, a rebel, a visionary, and an iconoclast. As this list perhaps conveys, Ludlam thrived on enigmatic contradiction. He is best known for refining the ridiculous theater, a distinct genre that is one of the earliest forms of gay theater in the United States. The ridiculous originated in the 1960s in the filmic and theatrical works of Jack Smith, Ronald Tavel, and John Vaccaro. It carried with it a ubiquitous spirit of mid-century gay liberation that was both enterprising, irreverent, and mercurial. Tavel claims to have coined the appellation ridiculous to define a genre that he saw moving beyond the absurd to the absolutely preposterous. As a distinctly American form, it unapologetically juxtaposes high culture, like canonical literature, grand theatrical traditions, and icons of Western history, with low pop culture, B-movies, popular entertainments, televisions, and icons of celebrity, with homage, travesty, and perhaps most notably with camp. Ludlam took the early conventions of the ridiculous, introduced by his predecessors, and perfected them, creating a sophisticated theater that perfectly represented the spirit of the times. Though Ludlam was a force to be reckoned with in the downtown theater of this period, today too few people outside of the theater and queer communities have heard his name. Although the ridiculous movement found its footing in the mid-1960s with the early practitioners Smith, Vaccaro, and Tavel, Ludlam's approach to the ridiculous was distinct, creating a unique sensibility that allowed the radical world of the period to coexist within the escapist world of theatrical performance. In turn, building a united queer community and communitas that encouraged public visibility on the streets and in the media. Ludlam's ridiculous was created in an alternative ambivalent gap that eschewed normative hierarchies and values for a queer collectivity, a queered version of the world that demonstrated its live and let live creed through live performance. From these performances, social bonds were formed that assisted in recruiting the numbers that would make the gay liberation movement a highly visible and united front, a force to be reckoned with. In short, the ridiculous helped to bring gay culture into the public eye. It was the sense of a productive ambivalence, a refusal to be pinned down or labeled into half of a concrete binary that allowed Ludlum's Ridiculous to thrive in both the theater and beyond, and admittedly in very different ways. Although Ludlum adamantly denied that his work was intended to be grassroots, his voice is too often overlooked, considering that it has helped to inspire progressive changes for the gay community in America for 50 years. In Ludlum's theater, movement towards social change and political progress was directed by a sophisticated exchange of exclusive codes driven by the playwright's reinterpretation of camp. This resulted in a unique approach to a communal and dialogue-provoking reception between the actors and the audience. In forging his own definition of camp, Ludlum was inspired by the novelist Marcel Proust, whose work was to move camp beyond aesthetics to become a guiding principle, or more specifically, a special view of things upon which his tactic to both forcibly and ambivalently throw the audience between worlds of reality and fantasy is based. Ludlum's understanding of Proust is the seed for his personal reinterpretation of the ridiculous, with camp as its modus operandi. In his essay entitled Camp, Ludlum clarified this vision, and he said, "Camp had a homosexual usage. Proust explains it very clearly. In Remembrance of Things Past, there's a long section where Proust describes camp as an outsider's view of things that other people take totally for granted. Because of the inversion, everything that everyone else has taken for granted isn't true for you. Suddenly, things become funny because you're seeing it through a mirror, a reverse image. Camp became a sly or secret sense of humor that could only exist to a group that had been through something together. In this case, the gay world." Ludlum reflected his own time through his own lens, that of an openly gay man during the period of sexual liberation. And he defined the purpose behind his mission in writing, and he wrote, "The ridiculous theater is a theater that gives a forum to widely express unpopular, nonconformist points of view, thereby preserving a spirit of independence and the importance of the individual." Ludlum's individualism was grounded in his homosexuality. His approach to gayness in both the aesthetic and concept of the theater was as a safe space. He said, "Gay people have always found refuge in the arts, and the ridiculous is notable for admitting it. The people in it never dream of hiding anything about themselves that they feel is honest and true. Thus, the original RTC was a forum for queer expression without proselytizing or attempting to convert the audience. Well, Ludlum was hardly arguing for people to come out of the closet. His theater invited people into a closet of queer fantasy and performance. Gay became normalized at the RTC, and as raucous and wild as the early shows were, there was a sense of calm in contrast to the riots erupting on the streets. Though the basic form of the ridiculous remains primarily the same, social change and personal tastes alter its current and ever-changing appearance. Because the sometimes sporadic and liberal nature of the independent artistic process may overlook its place in the family tree of a genre, like the ridiculous theater, I personally believe it is the responsibility of the theater historian, like myself, to untangle the paradoxes and critically analyze the transcendence of time in order to make a concrete record of this theatrical legacy. I suggest that to watch a neo-ridiculous play and grasp its Proustian subtext is to reconnect viscerally with the origins of the gay liberation movement and the intricate connections between politics and queerness and art. In the climate of its origin, Ludlum's theater was a catalyst for change, but in using a codified language to speak exclusively to a queer audience in an ontologically queer space, his work was also separatist and esoteric, both queerly ambivalent and queerly contradictory. Since Ludlum's passing 30 years ago this year, advancements in civil rights paired with community visibility have forever altered marginalized gay identity in America and beyond. Ludlum was an inheritor and a transmitter of classical theatrical traditions, as he created original work through a pastiche of queer themes and culture. The style of work that Ludlum created has continued in the work of artists who honor his work through the metamorphosis and subversion of that work, a queer legacy that is represented by Everett here tonight and this panel of phenomenal artists who are joining us. So thank you.
I've chosen to read excerpts from 3 plays tonight, from Conquest of the Universe, which was it's based on Tamburlaine's, Marlowe's Tamburlaine. And it was the play that the company was doing when the split happened, when Charles Ludlum and the gang broke from the Playhouse of the Ridiculous. And they were doing Conquest of the Universe, and half the company left and went with Charles, and they were going to mount the play anyway. And John Vaccaro got an injunction against Charles that he couldn't do his own play. So Charles renamed the play, and as I heard it, Charles was looking for another title, and Mario Montez, the great Mario Montez, said, "Call it When Queens Collide." John and Charles fighting. And I like to do the early plays because they're the most extreme and they're the most, to me, they're the most fun. And then we're going to do a scene from Turds in Hell, which is one of I think is my favorite of Charles's plays, of all the plays. And I just love it, and that's what we're going to do. And then Turds in Hell is just the extremeness of it. It's what I think of the ridiculous is that it's sacrilegious and blasphemous on purpose. I think of the ridiculous myself. It's anti-moral, and that it's not unmoral and not amoral. It's just knows that morality doesn't work. It's hip to that. It knows, in fact, that morality doesn't work. And the language in Turds in Hell, when we mounted it in the 90s, by this time I thought, well, the world is all settled down and we get it all. And then there's the big crucifixion scene with the Jesus character, and half the audience got up and left. I was amazed that you could still shop in this day and age. And then we're going to do a scene from the Grand Tarot, which just based on the tarot, and it's just another one of Charles's beautiful plays. That this one, to me, Grand Tarot defies description. So I'm not going to try and describe it. I'm just going to read for you, and I hope you have a good time. Thank you.
Conquest of the Universe, or When Queens Collide, by Charles Ludlum.
Beans!
Beans,
That's iron for your blood.
but lead for your stomach.
Beans! Don't knock Alice or we won't get in the palace.
Don't knock Alice or we won't get in the palace.
Don't knock Alice or we won't get in the palace.
Don't knock Alice or we won't get in the palace.
Don't knock Alice or we won't get in the palace.
Don't knock Alice or we won't get in the palace.
Don't knock Alice or we won't get in the palace.
Don't knock Alice or we won't get in the palace.
I'm Alice! Beans! Beans!
We'd be glad to have some, Alice.
Beans, Bajazeth! Beans!
Beans?
Beans! Beans!
Remember, ladies, you've seen nothing unusual here today.
They've denied our high heels, but we'll die with our boots on. The dinner is the thing, wherein I'll catch the something of a king.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Tam, cons, uni, extra, extra.
I'll have a paper, boy.
Gee, thanks, mister.
Newsboy runs out. Tamerlane cries like a baby.
What's the matter, sweetie? I hear the ruin of all space, shattered glass and toppling masonry, and time, one livid final flame. What's left us then? There are no more worlds to conquer.
Oh, don't cry. What you need is something to eat. Let the banquet begin. The kings and queens of the 9 planets enter in a stately procession to stately music and sit at a stately banquet table.
Before the cock crows thrice, one of you will betray me.
A toast to Tamburlaine!
A toast to
Tamburlaine! To your genitalia! May they never fail you!
Everyone drinks!
And now, a divertisement performed by the ballerina of Uranus.
The ballerina of Uranus dances on her toes. Tamerlane shoots Uranus.
Whenever I hear the word culture, I draw my pistol.
Cosroe, now is the hour.
Bajazeth lets down his pants and shows his ass to the audience.
My cook's cock, once a crown.
Sing a song of
Sixpence a pocket full of rye, 4 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was open, the birds began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before a king?
A toast to Alice!
Speech! Speech!
Tamburlaine, I have something to tell you. Fanfare! Fanfare! A fanfare of forks is heard! I'm going to have a little stranger.
Ooh!
In fact, X-ray show, I'm going to have 9 little strangers. All boys, and 1 to rule each planet. The sound of a crash is heard. Somebody dropped her earring. Why, here it is in my back cleavage. Alice dance a wild flamenco labor dance. Cosgrove serves as doctor and delivers her 9 babies.
Doctore, doctore, do you need any hot water?
Oh, I'm in hot water enough as it is.
They all dance, and Cosgrove completes delivery. Alice is prostrate.
I'm certainly glad you got that out of your system.
This hasn't been placenta.
Well, Milo?
Puta! I have not this 12-month fuckty.
Tamerlane stabs Alice. Ugh! And the 9 infants. 1, 6, 7, 8.
Oh, deeds most monstrous.
Oh, my young princes. Oh, my tender babes. My unblown flowers, new appearing sweets. If yet your gentle souls fly in the air and be not fixed in doom perpetual, hover about me with your airy wings and hear your mother's lamentation. Oh, mother of pearl, is there anything left to believe in?
Bear yourself! Amuse me! Chase the blues away!
Warning. Flies spread disease. Keep yours button.
Inconsolable!
Maybe this'll cheer him up. Tamburlaine, I have some
I too have borne you 9 little ones. Out of my asshole, one to rule each planet.
Oh, my love, my light, where are my sons? Would please you eat? Would please your highness feed? Go, fetch them hither to us presently.
Tamburlaine eats.
Sing a song of 6pence, a pocket full of rye, 24 black turds baked in a pie.
If these have to be my last moments, let me live in peace.
When the pie was open, the turds began to stink. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before a fink?
What?
Well, here they are, love. All baked in this pie, which its father hath daintily fed.
'Tis true! 'Tis true! The 9 turds of Bajazeth born out of his ass
Witness my knife sharp point!
Khosrow stabs Tamburlaine!
Die, frantic wretch, for this accursed deed.
Tamburlaine stabs Bajazeth!
Ah!
Shall a wife stand and see her husband's blood? Here's tit for tat and death for deadly deed! Alice stabs Khosrow!
I am slain. Farewell, my boys, my dearest friends, farewell. My body feels, my soul doth weep to see your sweet desires deprive my company. For Tamburlaine, the scourge of God, must die.
Khosrow! Khosrow!
Sabina! Methinks I hear my sister Sabina!
Khosrow! Khosrow! You have avenged my death bravely and paid with your own life. Sucker!
It's not what you do, it's how you do it.
Khosrow dies. Would you be free from your burden of sin? There is power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you or evil victory win? There is power in the blood of the Lamb.
There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb.
The vast majority of men, as well as women, are sexually disturbed as a result of a training which inhibits their sexuality. That is, they are not satisfied in sexual intercourse. What is necessary, therefore, is the establishment of a sufficient number of clinics for the treatment of sexual disturbances. What is necessary is a rational sex education which will affirm the validity of love.
Life is but a lying dream. He only wakes who casts the world aside. Khosrow is carried off in state. The cast follows his body out solemnly. Fini, or end of play.
Now we're going to do Turds in Hell. They wouldn't print the title in the Times back.
Turds in Hell by Charles Ludlam and Bill Bell. You know know they wrote this when they were on acid.
Fate has written a tragedy. Its name is the human heart. The theater is the house of life. Woman, the mummer's part. The devil enters the prompter's box, and the play is ready to start.
The pimp introduces the whores as they enter.
The charming whores, those in which beauty consists, are the tyrannical,
Anyone for a little rubber and discipline?
the tutu mahooch, the compulsive, the tarantula.
I was featured in Beavers in Paradise. I was the Finnish snapping pussy.
The scarcely credible, the blasé, and last but not least, the empty-headed.
I may be dumb, but you didn't come here for any conversation either.
Orgon enters in a nun's disguise and looks the whores over.
Oh, proud fondling whores, in spite of talc and rouge and all the gaudy lipstick, you smell of death.
Are you the gentleman from Shirley?
Yeah?
I have important news for you. You are afflicted with a grave sickness.
Oh, what kind of sickness? And how have you come by this information?
It is an inner sickness. Your body has been filled with the most dangerous poison. I learned this from revelations by the gods.
What would you have me do?
The only way to cure the sickness is to draw the venom out of you.
Oh.
You are fortunate in that we are equipped with tools which are capable of extracting the venom quite painlessly. In fact, it is certain that you will find the extraction enjoyable. Yeah. Yum. Yum.
The pimp displays the whore's extractors. The pimp removes Orgon's clothes and takes hold of his dick. The whores scream in ecstasy when they see Orgon's giant cock and balls. They dive on him. An orgy ensues.
Holy Toledo! You must have been born in a barn or something. Why, you look like a horse.
Looks more like an elephant's trunk to me. I don't think I can take it.
What do you think this is, a fucking mic? Come on, spread your cheeks a little wider, baby. It'll fit in there like a glove.
I think by the size of that salami, we're going to have to spread ourselves out just a little bit more, girls.
I'm sick and tired of working like a horse. Why can't we get those nice guys? Just to be a 4.5 inches.
Oh, I know what you mean. You're referring to the ones that just barely tickle your ovaries.
I don't know about you girls, but I ain't chicken. I can take it.
Honey, you ain't chicken. You're a gobbler. With a tool like that one, you certainly don't have to have your box scraped.
If I continue, he will rise up, become erect, and penetrate me so deeply that I shall be marked with stigmata.
Dreaming again, huh?
Listen, honey, I ain't never met a man yet who could take care of all of this sauerkraut. But I worship him. When I see him lying naked, I feel like saying mass on his chest.
To the heart, to the hilt, right to the balls, right in the throat.
Suck it yourself, sugar stick.
The knights are mad about me. Oh, the sultanas. My God, they're making eyes at me. Oh, they're curling my hair around their fingers. The fingers of the knights, men's cocks. They're patting my cheek, stroking my butt.
I'm not in the business for love, you know. I was in love once and I got the business.
Time wounds all heals. I remember that some 10 years ago, a beautiful, fresh, plump young girl, the personal chambermaid of the queen, was found guilty of high treason for trying to poison the king, and consequently was condemned to suffer the cruelest death that could be devised for her. It was decreed that after she had been crucified, she should be kept alive for as long as possible. The sentence was scrupulously carried out. When she fainted from the pain, the executioner gave her a little glass of liquor to revive her. She only died 6 days later. Her long suffering, her young age, and her robust constitution had made her flesh so tender, so savory, and so sought after that the executioner was able to sell it for more than 8 sequins.
8 sequins? Get out!
This inhuman market was so thronged with customers that persons of quality esteemed themselves happy if they could buy a couple of pounds.
Fleshmongers, all of them!
Thinness is more naked, more indecent than corpulence.
Suck a dick a day and die.
Spermatozoa, I love you so. I want to know when you will come. You are so tasty. I want to taste ye. I will not waste ye. Please give me some. Yum, 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 yum.
I saw something horrible last night when I was going home.
You astonish me. What was it startled you?
Oh, it was terrible. It made my blood stand still to behold what I beheld.
What was it met your gaze?
I saw a young man and a young woman swinging on a gate in the moonlight, biting each other.
The impulse to bite is the origin of the kiss.
To kiss means the act of biting rather than that of sucking.
Suck it yourself, sugar stick.
Not only is he strange and queer, but he's also got a one-track mind as well.
We always need to make certain effort to understand the loves of others and their way of making love. If it were possible to watch the practices of our nearest neighbors, would seem as strange and even as extravagant, and let us say as monstrous as the couplings of reptiles, insects, dogs, and prehistoric monsters.
There is no exalted pleasure which cannot be related to prostitution. At the theater, the ballroom, each one enjoys possession of all. God is the most prostituted of all beings because he is the closest friend of every individual, because he is the common, inexhaustible reservoir of love.
Oh, hideous Jewess, lay with me for hire one night, 2 corpses side by side.
What are you so smug about, you doxy trollop?
Nothing. Only this invitation to the biggest party of the year.
Nocturnes at L.
The one and only.
Yeah. Well, she sure thinks her shit don't stink, huh? But she's no better than the rest of us. I hear she murdered her child.
She didn't murder him, just left him on a mountain box. He had 2 heads or something.
Aragorn is listening intently. Well, fucking the devil-less tarantula. More he realizes it's his mother they're talking about. The closer he gets to orgasm. When he reaches it, he lets out a joyous yell. And a scream.
That semen is as cold as ice. After saying, I must return to the dead. As thou hast bragged of having fucked my body, so also canst thou boast of having fucked my soul.
And she fucks like she's got a newspaper asshole.
What is the greatest pleasure in love?
To receive, to give oneself.
The pleasure of pride.
The voluptuousness of humility.
To beget citizens for the state.
On my part, I say the sole and supreme pleasure in love lies in the absolute knowledge of doing evil. And man and woman know from birth that in evil is to be found all the voluptuousness.
Orgon, left alone, finds the invitation Vera dropped. The invitation to his long-lost mother's wedding.
Oh, thou nature art my goddess. To thy law my services are bound. Why should I stand in the plague of customs and submit for the curiosity of nations to deprive me? Just because my mother dumped me? Why hunchback? Wherefore pinhead? How come sex maniac? Why my form is as well compact, and my mind is sharp, and my shape as true as any honest madam's issue. Why brand they us with base, with baseness, with bastardy? Why base? Why basement? Why not try the roof? Well, Orgon, if this invitation gets you on the yacht, Orgon the base shall grow and prosper. Now, gods, stand up for hunchbacks, for pinheads, for sex maniacs!
He exits, doing the shuffle off to Buffalo. End of play.
And now we're going to read an excerpt from The Grand Tarot.
The Grand Tarot by Charles Ludlam. Enter the Emperor and Empress.
Ever since the accident, she has been going on about it in such heavens of joy. I've seldom seen anyone so happy.
It felt so suddenly. I was in my bathtub.
I fear it's badly damaged.
Half of it is down. Such gusts of wind. The way they pulled the bushes.
How did it happen? Exactly.
A pair of scissors, it appears, was left upon the parapet and caught the lightning's eye.
What a dreadful thing!
That the cathedral should submit to be struck strikes me as being so strange. It never has before.
My maid has asked me if she may go over and see the ruins.
Age holds no horrors for me, not anymore. Someday I'll have a house here, and I'll grow old quite gracefully.
Surely with age one's attractions should increase. One should be irresistible at 90.
A few of us perhaps may. You, dear, you will.
You used to say it would be in a town with a V. Versailles, or Valambros, or Verona.
The Sphinx spins the wheel of fortune. It is said that if the fool can make death laugh, he will be spared one extra day.
Make me laugh.
I'm not afraid. I'll tell you why. You see, I have no death to die.
Make me laugh.
Did you hear the one about the man who died and then lived?
Died and then lived?
He died. His hair. This one will really slay you. Why did Lothario put it to his girl in the graveyard? Because he thought it would be a good place to bury a stiff.
And not funny. You lose our game of chess. You may be a fool today, but when they come for you tomorrow, you will be a grave man.
The fool bends over, and death gives him a swift kick in the ass.
Touche. I thought you said you could beat him with your eyes closed.
Ah, I was at a disadvantage. I had my eyes open.
That was a good one.
The fool has made death laugh. He wins one extra day on Earth.
What will you do with your one extra day?
I think I'll sleep late.
Now I must return to the netherworld. Yes, it is a touching moment when they administer the last sacrament, the last sleep, the last dream.
The last dream? Do you know the High Priestess?
Intimately.
Do you know where she is?
On the other side of the river Styx.
Sticks and stones may break my bones.
Will you take me to her?
There's a ferry leaving every minute for Hades.
Hades?
I've heard so much about your wicked city. I'm dying to see it.
Take me to her.
Smell this white rose. You have breathed plague, cholera, dysentery, typhoid, the 4 princes of the blood royal in the palace of King Death.
This is it. Everything's slipping. I'm falling inside.
Now that's all right. Don't fight it. Go with it. Think of all the guys who have done it before you. You've got company. High-class company. Bonsai, kid.
The magician falls into a death-like sleep inside the sarcophagus. The angel of temperance appears, pouring water back and forth between 2 chalices.
Who will carry his ashes unto the mountains?
I will.
You. Who are you?
I'm a thoroughbred mongrel, related to all the earth, and nothing human is foreign to me.
And what can you do?
I will open the doors and castles of death. And now, forever, the laughter of children shall spring forth from coffins.
All is empty, all is equal, all hath been. I breathe the odor of dust eternities.
I will terrify and subvert them with laughter. Give me back my father.
Your father lost a father, and that father lost his. Don't you know, fool, all that lives must die, passing through nature to eternity.
But I have 3 wishes, and I want my father alive again.
Granted, the sarcophagus opens. The magician comes forward, dressed as a mummy.
Congratulations, father. You're a mummy.
I wish the High Priestess were here.
Granted.
Look at that old beggar woman. She looks like the stump of a tree.
This is the High Priestess.
Oh, no! No, you are old! Old! Oh, no, not old!
Old? Will you hear him? In my own young days, I had 100 letters from a man a darn sight better than he is. They came like raindrops in May. And I had a high head at the time, and I sent no answer. Don't think, because you see me alone now, that I was in want of handsome men in the old days. When Shoshu came to me, Shino Shatsu Takakuzu, that came to me in the moonlight, and in the dark night, and in the nights flooded with rain, and in the black face of the wind, and the wild swish of the snow. He came as often as the rain falls from the heavens, 99 times. And then he died. And I am still a virgin, ever virgin unto eternity. And his ghost is around me, driving me on with the madness.
I wish the High Priestess young again. We're out of wishes? You wasted this wish on English pudding? How could you? I hate you, you fool, you idiot!
He kicks.
Father, why hast thou forsaken me?
Look, the fool has wept a tear. It is a green tear.
The star holds up a jewel.
I am new at weeping.
All the tears a fool can weep will not make the High Priestess young again. Caruso's Pagliacci plays, and the fool rends his garments with weeping. When the moon wipes his face appears on the cloth.
His heart is broken.
In the future, let those who play the fool have no hearts.
The sun The moon and the stars dress the fool as Christ, and the magician as God the Father. The old lady becomes the Virgin Mary. They assume the positions of Michelangelo's Pietà. End of play.
So I hope you can join us for a talk or a discussion or a panel or whatever we want to say. Maybe we move them to the side. So maybe you have to share some mics. So we'll give out some of them. Normally the panels are much smaller, but so we have 11 or 12. And Sean, are you there? Yeah, you have your face. So can you? So let's get the mics up. I think you have to switch them up top. Oh, here he is. So normally it always works out that I have a chair, but this is a good sign. Though let's start off first. Congratulations again. I think a round of applause and thank you for putting this together. So maybe a question to all of you first. What does the theater of the ridiculous and the Ridiculous Theater Company, what does it really mean to you? What is it really all about?
Well, for me, it gave me a place to be. I've said this before many times, but I grew up knowing that I was different and thinking that there was no place for me. And then I found the theater, and one of the first things I ever seen the company do was Taboo Tableaus, and it was a fundraiser, and it was a scene. They played a scene from each play they had done for the 10 years of their existence, and I wasn't in the group yet. And the first thing I ever saw was Black Eyed Susan doing Zuni Feinschmecker, the rehearsal in Caprice. And I walked in, and my world just was turned upside down. And then I watched, they did a scene from Camille, and I had just met George Osterman. Speaking of George, I had just met him that afternoon, and I met him as a boy, and he was a pretty boy. And then I went to the theater that night for the performance, and I met George as Bunny Beswick in Hot Ice, and it opened my mind. There was finally a place for me, and I was among like people. So that's what it means to me. What does it mean to you?
Let's ask Glennis. No, it means revolution to me. It means people standing up for who they are. It means people not being afraid of themselves or hating themselves, but reveling in the fact that we all are different, and that is something that is very important to the world. All of our differences are important to the world, and that's what it means to me.
I think it was a matter of being in the presence of genius. I went
Mike,
to see Charles Ludlam in Caprice, And at the end of the first scene, he drapes himself gracefully across the chaise lounge. Glamorous, beautiful. The chaise lounge was painted on a backdrop.
When I first met Charles, I was a puppeteer. And I had been a puppeteer, marionettes mostly, for quite a long time, touring all over the country to schools, to do things for children. And another friend of mine had met Charles, and I think had been in maybe one of the productions or something. And he said, maybe you should try and see if you can get into this company, because I think it's really great. And so I went down to Sheridan Square, where we had our little theater down in the basement kind of thing. And Charles came up out of the basement because he'd sort of been told that this girl was interested. And I'll never forget what he did. He took his hands and put them on my shoulders. And he looked at me like this, and he said, "Yeah, you'll do." And it was my home for a theater for, I don't know how many, 10 years, at least 10 years, yeah. And it showed me what theater can do politically, and particularly for marginal people, which at that point in time, a lot of gay men and gay people generally were. And, I think that all of us who were in the company, or maybe even saw a lot of the shows, would say that was what it was about. That's what it was about. We are just as good as anybody else, so that was great.
I would say, for me, I got drafted at very short notice into the theater. My first show there as a performer was Turds in Hell, the revival in 1988, and Black-Eyed Susan was my mother in it. And they had replaced John Brockmeyer, because John Brockmeyer had been ill, and he kind of disappeared a couple days before the show started. And Everett called me up and said, would you come in and audition for this? And I was auditioning for Orgon, the hunchbacked, pinheaded sex maniac. And I said, okay. And I remember that when I came in, Everett and Larry Kornfeld were where they were directing. And so during the audition, Everett came up to me and said, okay, can you read these lines like Sylvester the Cat? Okay, say, what's this? And so then Everett walked over, and Larry, and they came over, they said, well, it's yours if you want it. I said, okay. And 2 days later, we opened. And so I had to learn the role in 2 days. The thing it's taught me, the Ridiculous Theater has taught me, was freedom of creative expression. Every time I got like, oh, I don't know if I could, I didn't know whether, Everett would say to me, just go out. We called it Barracuda Theater. Just get out there and just chew the scenery. And we were given freedom to perform and freedom to create. And that's what I got out of it. And from that freedom, it gave the audience a freedom to be able to play with us. And so there was a real exchange. That's the one thing, unlike any other show I've ever done, is that at the Ridiculous Theater, you always played with your audience. It was play. It was Playhouse, And I just feel very grateful that I was able to come in and work with Susan and work with Bill Vare. And I remember, one last thing I'll tell you was after the show opened and I was playing Orgon, John Brockmeyer showed up one time. And he was sitting in the audience. And after the show, I came out, I had taken my makeup and my giant penis off. And John looked at me and he goes, "You, Eve Carrington." That was my introduction to John. But I had seen Artificial Jungle before and other shows. But anyway, that was my experience.
I think for me, coming from an academic perspective, but also someone who loves theater, a kind of as everyone has said, it is the spark that really ignited gay theater in America. And it all traces back to that. And the book that I wrote is really about Ludlam, but also his legacy. And there are so many young queer performers today who owe everything to the Ridiculous Theatrical Company, whether or not they know it. I think a great example is there's a chapter of the book dedicated to Taylor Mack, and what Taylor Mack is doing is coming inherently from this, to the point where if you went to the 24-hour marathon concert, the final song is called Get Up and Play, right? And it's coming specifically from that sensibility.
I don't want to be contradictory here, and I want to just preface that, because Charles did not think he was doing gay theater. He was totally against the notion of gay theater. What he was into, and it doesn't. I think of the Ridiculous as the first honest gay voice in the theater. It was where the queer didn't have to die. Like Charles said, if the queer is going to commit suicide, it should be for a fabulous reason, and not to, in like the children's hour and crap like that. Before this, the queer had to die. Then it had to die horribly, and in these, because Charles said he didn't want to do to the theater what people do to people. He didn't want to impose these limits on people, and it can't be queer theater. It can't be queer in the queer. It can't be gay theater because so many of the great practitioners were straight. So it's an honest voice for gay people. And you're right. I think it was on the wave to Stonewall, but it learned from the people that came before it, the Mattachines, and it was feeding off of this revolution that was taking place and getting its freedom from that. And then you get this group, Black Eyed Susan and Bill Vare and John Brockmeyer and Jack Mallory and Richard Curry and Lola Pashalinski, and you get these people, and Mario Montez, and here they are. They didn't know they were revolutionizing it. I mean, they did know. I'll take that back. They did know they were revolutionizing the theater, but it wasn't, oh, let's go revolutionize the theater. It was, let's go have fun while we're revolutionizing the theater. And it has, like you said, it has, part of the reason we went under is because we spawned competition. And the competition was as good or better, and it just, it left us behind. So.
I just want to jump in and take off on what Everett said. You know, I came to New York when I was 18 years old, and I was one of those gender non-conforming people that didn't sort of fit in the gay world. I didn't fit in the straight world. I was sort of in between, and this was in the 70s. And I lived on 10th Street and University Place in a hotel for like $35 a week. And my friend and I, one night, I had the most excruciating toothache. It was so painful. I'd never felt pain like that in my life. And my friend had these tickets to this show. And I was like, I don't want to go, I can't go. He's like, oh, take some aspirin, you'll feel better. And I was like, no, I don't want to go. And so it was just a block away. I think it was on like 11th Street or 13th Street, I'm not sure where that earlier theater was, but it was the production of Camille. And the reason my friend wanted to go was because our dear friend Ethel Eichelberger was in the show, and we knew him from Rhode Island, and so we went to see Ethel. Well, I had no idea what I was in for. Within the first few minutes of Camille, my toothache completely disappeared. I had no pain. I was crying with tears of laughter, and it just struck me. It was just such an odd thing that I had come to New York and fell into this sort of unbelievable theatrical experience. And the thing that Everett said about the honesty, there was just such honesty on that stage of these people like me, some of them were like me, doing what they really love to do. And it really inspired me and kept me in pursuit of, some type of theatrical career. And then, lastly, when I auditioned for Everett in Bluebeard, and I got the part, it was the most incredible wonderland of fun that I have ever had any time in my entire theatrical career. Every night it was just a joy to be in that crazy, kooky, intense, amazingly skilled performers in the company. It was just one of the most wonderful experiences of my life, and I'm so amazingly grateful that I've had the chance to do that. But I think that I think it's not so much about queer theater, but just being recognized for your talent, regardless of what your calling is, what your identity is, or what you're presenting in the world. It really opened the door for me to just be free and to have a tiny bit of confidence in pursuit of what I love to do. And most of the theater in New York, either you were, back then anyway, you were either in the closet or you were playing straight, or and as far as marginalized people, I mean, we are still marginalized. I mean, we're not there yet. Where I don't want to fool anybody thinking that we've made a lot of great strides, but we are still marginalized as queer people in the theater. And thank God something like this exists for us.
You guys, the members, if you want only,
I think we came after. I didn't know Charles, and I actually have only known Everett for about 8 years. We did a production, some of us here did a production together in the style of The Ridiculous, Cornberry, with the rescue.
Bill Hoffman.
Bill Hoffman, who just passed away. And I remember being so terrified of Everett on stage, because he was playing this fire-breathing pastor. And I'd never met him before, and I was like, holy shit, this guy will eat me alive if I let him. But then we became friends, just sitting backstage, just getting acquainted and talking, waiting to go on. He was such a lamb. And we've just been best friends ever since. And then he introduced me to all these people, and I've been fortunate enough to do some other readings of the Ridiculous Theater.
So maybe a question towards the mechanics of the production, the way you produced altogether the play. Did he write the play in a hotel, at home, together? How long did you rehearse? Where did you rehearse? How was it financed? And how long did you play? Where did you play? How was that all? How did it all happen?
In 10 words or less.
No. We have some time.
Well, there might have been some acid involved. No, well, I don't think, as far as I know, from just my experience, the only play that was totally written when we went into rehearsal was Doreen Got Verblundet. That was the only play that I remember that was a total script. Other than that, the plays he wrote as we went along. Like, I remember one play, I forget what it was, maybe, I forget the name of the play, but he wrote it as we went along. And Charles one day said to me, he said, don't worry, Everett, it's a great role. Because we would have, and then one day we did, oh God, what was the play? The Exquisite Torture. And I was the costume designer on that as well, and I had $400 to costume this massive show. And then, and as the play would come in, each day you'd get a new thing of the play, and then I guess I must have been bitching about what a hard job doing the costumes was. And then Susan came up to me with the script one day, and she said, the new script came in, and she said, oh, look at what this says, Everett. And it says, she changes for dinner. And I had to go find another dress because we were probably opening it. You know, so it was there was a freedom and a chaoticness, but it all came together.
So how long was the rehearsal process? Was it the day, evenings, or how many weeks?
It was. It's hard to say. It varied from show to show, and it was mostly at night because people had to work. So, and the funding. I mean, in the early plays when I wasn't there, I don't know how the funding was, but then with Bluebeard, that's when the company got government funding, and they got funding from the National Endowment. And I don't know when the state started to kick in, but that was the funding, and then you'd have to fundraise and make money the best way you could.
One thing I just wanted to add too, I came in when Everett started directing. I had seen Charles, I had met Charles, but I never worked in the company when Charles was directing. And the one thing that Everett always taught us is just work with what you've got. Like one night in Bluebeard, I'm sure you remember that the set started to collapse in the middle of the scene. And it just, there was this whole big scene when it goes into the laboratory, and the sets just started coming down. It was a couple days after opening, and we just went with it. What we did was we all stopped and we looked at the scene the scenery falling down, and then we just went on with the play. It's the same with Camille. Everett was doing a big scene one time, and a giant cockroach fell from the ceiling onto the floor, and all Everett did was he just turned. He's like, and he goes. And then he went on with the scene. That's what we were taught to do. Just be like, just go with it, If everything's falling down, just keep going. And that was the fun part of production, really.
That was a funny night with the roach. Because there was this huge laugh, and Jean-Claude Vassaux was in it with us, and it was this huge laugh, and it was one of the sad scenes, and I couldn't figure out what the laughter was. and I was thinking that I was wearing a dress, so I couldn't be. My fly was down. I didn't know what it was, and then I turned, and there was this giant water bug. And I had this big dress on, and I went and pulled it up, and it walked by. I congratulate myself that I didn't kill it, 'cause I would have lost the public.
So, remember the time when the mouse was on your? Oh, we were doing Camille. I'm sorry, we were doing Carmen. Everett had written an adaptation of Carmen for the Ridiculous, and he played Carmen. And one night we're backstage, a whole group of us, me, Lennis, Cheryl, what was Cheryl's name? Cheryl Reeves, and Everett had this he had this denim gown on that had a long ass train, this long train. And as he's entering to the stage, we saw a mouse on the end of his train. So now there's the four of us. We're trying to get the mouse before he goes out on stage with it, which we couldn't do. And so the mouse became a star of the Ridiculous that night.
But what were difficult moments, dangerous moments, complicated moments in the life of the company?
I remember a story that Charles told me, and it was at Tambellini's Gate on 2nd Avenue and 10th Street. And there was a Wheel of Fortune up on a balcony, and someone was underneath it, and the wheel started to come loose. And somebody ran and saved the day. That's the scariest story I ever heard. And it was in Turds in Hell.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know exactly who was where when that happened. And Madame here got hurt one day really bad when a piece of scenery fell over, and she slammed into it in the dark. That was horrible.
I had a severe panic attack on stage once. If any of you have had a panic attack, it's horrible. And, and I was with Julia, and we had a scene, and everything started to sort of go away. And I all I did was I couldn't do anything, and I just turned and walked away. I was in this sort of state. And so the Ridiculous was a boot camp for me, and this is like an example because I went backstage and I lost it. And Everett went out and told the audience that I was not well, and about 15 minutes later, we continued. And it was maybe the scariest moment of my life. And to continue night after night after that. But along the same lines as everyone's been saying, I went into the Ridiculous and it expanded who I was from the very beginning, because when I auditioned for How to Write a Play, I thought that I was, most appropriate for the henchman of the general. And then Everett cast me as the general, and I was like, oh, me? And he saw something in me that, that I had not yet seen. And along with that, at the same time, I was thrust into this sort of this chaotic family, but what in my mind I thought of as real theater, as, you go out there and you give it your all every night. We gave it our all. And at the same time, I was developing and as a gay man. And I had a partner at the time who had gone to Juilliard, and he was like a proper actor. And, but surprisingly enough, there was instances that he was afraid to be completely out because of fear that he would not get work or how his agent might perceive him. And at the same time, I was part of this company. So it was a development as an actor, as a person, and as a gay man. And it was frightening at times, as I just mentioned, but I wouldn't be who I am today without it.
I just remember one time, I remember Everett we were doing Camille in London, and we had to make the entrance onto the stage, we had to go underneath the stage, and it was like the house in Alice in Wonderland. It just kept getting smaller and smaller. Toward the end, we were having to crawl like this, and one night Everett we were doing the third act, and as we were going underneath, there was this low beam, and Everett bashed his head. And I remember that we were concerned. I think, Everett carried on, but we were really concerned because he really hit his head, and we still had to do the third act. I mean, I don't know how, and he's like, but he was in such a jolly mood that I just remember he bashed his head. He's like, we're all like, okay.
Killed my mood.
One night we were doing, I came into the company when we did Midsummer Night's Dream. I was in Everett's master class, and then he invited me to be in the company and play Titania. And one night, Everett was playing a character that had to wear one of those Roman helmets, that had the brush on top. And next thing you know, he comes running into the dressing room. The hat had cut him across his nose, and he was bleeding. And since I had everything I need for everybody in the entire cast in my dressing room, they used to call it the general store. Everett comes running in and says, I need a Band-Aid, because he was going right back out on stage. So without really looking, I handed him a Band-Aid. And when he came off the stage from doing the scene, I realized I had given him a Snoopy Band-Aid. And he went on stage with Snoopy right across his nose.
So before we go to some audience question, I think we have Susan with us, and Lee, and also John. And if it's possible to ask you, maybe Susan, give us some memories maybe about Charles and what it meant to you to work with him, if that's okay.
I met Charles Ludlam in college. We were both at Hofstra, and it was a very different time for me. I was very, very shy then and afraid, but I knew that I wanted to act. And I was studying, we had a wonderful scene study teacher. She was truly magnificent, and she was recognized as such. And I was backstage up at the Hofstra Theater watching a play, watching a rehearsal from backstage. I wasn't in the play. And there was a man that came up next to me, and he said, you love the theater? And I don't know how it happened. I just turned quickly and said, yes! And I couldn't believe I did that, and he grabbed my hand and he said, well, stick by me, babe, you'll see the east. So we became friends, and we did a play there that he directed. And I was a young woman. All my relatives had died, and I was a young woman with my husband. And the man that was playing my husband, he was about 6'4", a lot taller than me, and we both died in an accident. So we go to the grave where all my relatives are. My aunt and the people that died stay at the age that they died at. So my aunt is not older than me, she's 5 years old. But Charles said about that, he said to the guy that was playing my husband, he said, you have to just crawl on your knees. And that's what he did during that whole play. But you know what, after it happened, the people that saw the play, the professors, they recognized his talent, but they weren't eager to say so. And they told everybody not to speak to us. And it was because at the end of the play we didn't take a bow, because we all died in the play. So the professor said, okay, nobody speak to them. And finally one woman who eventually went to Hollywood, played on television for years, she played all the major parts at Hofstra then. She just whispered in my ear and she said, I just want to tell you that I really liked you. I liked the play, but don't tell anybody I spoke to you. And I realized when I came to New York and Charles and I met again, we had parted, but we met again, and that time we just stuck close together. And he was a wonderful director. He was a very brilliant man, and he had the gift of language. He didn't need an encyclopedia. He didn't need a dictionary. He was just able to express himself so brilliantly, and he was able to direct. And I remember once a wonderful direction he gave me, which I'm sure that Stanislavski used. It was in Bluebeard, and I was the young girl, and he was talking to me on stage, and we were rehearsing, and he said, when I talk to you, yes, you're looking into my eyes, yes, but you know, it's when somebody else is talking to you and you're listening, there are other thoughts going through your mind at the same time. He said, remember that. It was a brilliant direction. That was it. Thank you.
Maybe Ali, what are your memories and your collaboration?
It was a very moving evening, and I just want to thank everybody for all of their efforts this evening. Charles was very, very important to me, and has influenced my work consistently since his death, and he was a genius. I just wanted to say that to the gentleman who gave the academic reading earlier, that I wish someone, hopefully who is on Charles' side from the academic community, gets it together to really talk about and give him the credibility that he needs culturally. I think a book about Charles that is really informed is overdue. Unfortunately, the man that should have written it had just died. He was another dear, dear friend, Leon Katz, who maybe you know. he just died in Los Angeles, and there's going to be a ceremony for him in about 2 weeks. We're going to try to get out there, because he was a dear friend and we were at Yale together. But I can tell you, Leon would have really written the book on him, and he spoke about Charles repeatedly when I talked to him. What I wanted to say was that to follow his tradition, a couple of people that haven't been really mentioned were Alfred Jarry particularly, and the whole tradition of Alfred Jarry, and that kind of classic, you know, gender-oriented tradition. I think Alfred actually had an affair with Oscar Wilde before Wilde died right at the end, you know. And he's one of my heroes. And all the whole commedia tradition going into the working method, the entire Italian commedia tradition. I think a couple of, but there are so many incredible historical sources that go into the work of Charles, who just moved it along. I think he needs his place in history, and I hope that someone gets the funding and the time and the inclination, who is enough of a scholar to do it right, to really honor Charles the way he should be honored.
Well, Sean's book is coming out soon in November, so I hope we have some leaflets out, so please do check it out. Then we go to Marvin, maybe Richard, and then John.
Thank you. Wonderful evening, and a very moving one. And I want to, I think the evening would not be complete if without a couple of perspectives that haven't been touched on, but are very important. One of these is a personal and one is a general thing. And the personal is, I have to say how tremendously moving and important in my life the Theater of the Ridiculous was as a straight person. I came to New York from Kansas, and there's no straighter coming from there. But with a fascination for theater, and I went to some of the early Theater of the Ridiculous, and then I was hooked, and I never missed a production over many years. And I have to say that for me also, a whole new world opened up. And you must remember that the Theater of the Ridiculous also opened a vast new world for the straight community too. It just has to be said. The other thing that needs not be, that has not been said, but ought to be said, is a word or two about the audience. Those of you who remember the Theater of the Ridiculous audiences will remember that they were not like any other audience I can remember for two reasons that go together. One is, immediately when you came in, you felt you were part of a community. There was a kind of spirit and anticipation and excitement about it, which only grew as the evening went on. So, but that happens other times in theater. Audiences often form solid communities. But what made this community different from any other community is that as the evening went on, and this goes back to the incredible range of Charles's imagination and work, that is all the way from the oddest pop culture and obscure films to the most esoteric literary references to obscure quotations from third-rate Ibsen plays and whatever, which meant that nobody in the audience had Charles's eclectic mind and could get it all, but everybody got some of it. And so you had this strange experience that there was a continual ripple of laughter and shrieks of laughter from 2 or 3 people in different parts of the house, all during the evening. And I'll never forget that peculiar kind of community mixed with all these individual reactions that I saw in every production I saw.
Thank you. That was Marvin Carlson, the colleague here, the world's probably most foremost theater historian. But Richard, maybe.
Well, I would like to add that the title "Turds in Hell" comes from Bill Vare, who had an aunt named Terzinel. And he used to always tell us when they were kids, they would say, turds in hell. And Charles kept a notebook of titles and random thoughts, and so I'm sure that it came from that notebook. Like when we were playing Brussels and discovered Stella Artois was a name. I think there's a character in Caprice named Stella Artois because we had discovered that name in bars in Brussels. I saw Queens Collide at the Theater for New City on 2nd Avenue, and then fell in love with the company really with Bluebeard at the Performing Garage. It was just a stunning big production of Bluebeard. And Charles ran into my friend Bob Jack Callejo at a party, and this was the spring of '72, and he said, do you suppose Richard would do the lights for Eunuchs of the Forbidden City? And Bob Jack said, yes, we'd love to. And so we signed on as the lighting crew for Eunuchs and brought our friend John Brown along to do sound. And one thing that Bob Jack and I brought to Charles was traditional stagecraft. He had been having drops that Laura Wilson painted, and there was some nice things, but he was really fond of traditional stagecraft. And the first example would be Bob Jack's Marzipan set for Camille. And then there were the traveling versions, which were just drops. But in conversation with Charles, he was working on a film script called Stage Blood. Yeah. And he was talking with Bob Jack and I one evening about his idea for this backstage Hamlet something. And Bob Jack said, well, what if there was a turntable? And that's how Stage Blood became a play from a movie script.
John, what you said, you have to do this evening, tell a bit where you see it fits in the New York movie.
Yeah, I was talking to Frank and I said, well, we have to have something on Charles Ludlam, but first thing I saw was Caprice at the Performing Garage in '75 or '76, I think. And it really, like everybody is saying, it was sort of like the world shaken up and turned upside down, and I remember not being able to tell what was really going on, which meant that something really good was going on. But there were so many references, all of the whole entire cast seemed like they were completely crazy to me. Like crazy people had come onto the stage, and which was thrilling, actually. So also all the other things that were mentioned, the references to pop culture, to all kinds of high and low culture mixed together, huge influence to so many people, because it gave us permission to do that. The other just a funny thing is that I had gotten to know Stuart Sherman a bit, and I was doing Chang and Avoid Moon at the Pyramid Club. We started doing it, and I invited Stuart, and he said, "Oh, can I bring a friend?" And I said, "Oh, sure, no problem." This was very early on. I had no idea what I was doing. And I remember being up in a booth somewhere before the show and looking out and seeing Stuart, and then Charles Ludlam was with him. And I thought, oh my God, this is the end of the world. Charles Ludlam has arrived at this crazy club, and he's going to see this disaster of a show that I'm doing. Everything is finished. Because actually, at that point, to me, the 3 or 4 or 5 kind of superstars in our community. So it was Stuart Sherman, Richard Foreman, Charles Ludlam, Lee Brewer. So it was people like that. Ruth Malachek as well. But I mean, all these names were floating around what apparently was our own little world. And they were actually changing a lot of things everywhere else. It wasn't just in our own little world. But anyway, afterwards, Charles was great to me, always so supportive of the younger generation. He was wonderful to know after that. And then eventually I got to work with Ethel and Susan, and so his influence just has gone everywhere. People that really don't realize it, but it's really true. So also, I do think it also influenced television completely. It's incredible how it's influenced what happens on a sitcom these days. Sometimes I can't believe to know where it really started leaking out into the culture, and all these things have been made possible. So, anyway,
thank you, John. Before we open up, any comment or to what we just heard, or from you guys, or okay, so we can take a couple. So then let me put Jens one, and what up two? Anybody else? So we start three. Okay, so we start over here, and so who was the first? It was you, right?
So hello. As one of the designers who had several years of great work with you guys, one of the things that you gave everyone who designed for you was the chance to have an audience pee their pants at your designs. And that's a really rare thing. And so I found this last night. This is from the 1993 Lisa, Bennett and Everett's. And Everett plays an evil person. We were very worried about the right-wing America rising. And he reads a storybook to some children. You might just want to take a quick peek.
It was when we did Linda. Someone told me, came up to me and said that we didn't feature lesbians in our work. And I thought, well, that was a thing to take quite seriously. And so the play that Mark Bennett and I wrote, we wrote a musical called Linda. And I based it on Anthony Trollope's Linda Trestle. And it was the only novel that Trollope wrote that didn't take place in England or something. But I played the Reverend Dr. Charlotte Drum. And Lisa Herbold played Linda. And she was this closeted lesbian who ran a laundromat. And she was in love with Lizzie the Leslie, who was the train conductor. And there was this kid, Grant Neal played Gabriel, who was like this kind of idiot. And I came into the thing to take over the world. My plan was to take over the world for Jesus. And the kid was a dope. But I said to him, I said, well, you're not stupid, you just got a learning defect. So I taught him how to read using Mein Kampf. But it's a pop-up version of Mein Kampf. And when we open it, oh no, how did it pop up?
Oh, yes, the other one.
You're showing it.
And it slapped you in the face. It slapped you in the face, and the soundtrack was gorgeous, and like there would be like a Bush rally and shit. And then there was another one with the.
Oh.
Just
happened in Virginia.
Oh yeah, Burning Cross, yeah. And then, we were going to take over the world. And what happened, and it was had a forward by Cardinal O'Connor. With a forward by Cardinal O'Connor. He was such a fuck to us. And then, when Gabriel learned how to read, he became an evil genius, and he became the founder of the Aryan Nation. And there was a scene with Lizzie and Linda were escaping from the Nazis, from the Aryan Nation, and they were on a train, and I stole the scene from a Mae West movie where they're fighting on the train, and they're escaping, and the Aryan Nation attacks the train, and they beat up Lizzie. Well, at the end, Gabriel and myself, we got crushed by a giant Bible.
Thank you, Everett.
Also, in this, there was Armitage Shanks, which I learned later that Eureka hated the role, but she was so fabulous in it. I loved her in it, and she invented the what was it? The Excrematron 9000, where she learned how to. I read this thing in National Geographic about in the '60s they were trying to turn excrement back into food, and Eureka invented it, and it was a toilet bowl. Talking of names, and Armitage Shanks is a toilet bowl in London, and so I stole that from Charles. And she would turn shit into food. And Jamie, this was you. You won this one because this banana came out, and David directed it. Poor David. I was so evil to David. But David directed it, but Jamie did the props, and there was when she put the shit in the machine, she dropped this shit in the machine, and it turned it into food, and a banana came out. And I thought it should be a brown banana, and Jamie said, no, it has to be a yellow banana. And then we would peel the banana, and it had shit inside the And you were so right, Jamie. And the audience would squirm, and they would, oh.
Get your mic. Well, which was the second question? Oh, it was you, yes.
So I'm going to apologize in advance for being a little emotional, but I think it's an important and sad part of the story, which is my best friend came to New York City in the 80s, and when Everett refounded the troupe, Jim Lamb, and he starred in a number of shows with you all. A lot of you acted with him, and he died of AIDS as a very young man in this community, and his memorial was in the theater in Sheridan Square. I remember it to this day. And I have the story of AIDS and gay men's and our community's experience of AIDS is written so deeply into this group, and the role you all played in, well, obviously starting with Charles, but across the life of the troupe and supporting the community and creating a place where we could love each other and stay honest and funny during the crisis is one of the most important parts of that history. I became a scholar of AIDS in part because of that. But I just wanted to honor the community's holding of each other through that crisis. And really all of you that I remember, and Everett in particular, your role in his life and the life of so many actors who lived and died through that period. I'm sorry to take it down, but I don't feel like it's a downer. I feel like it's a really important, it's at the heart of this work, and it shows everywhere. The beauty and sorrow and tragedy that befell our community and is still in our community. So I wanted to thank you for that and for the evening as well.
That was an excellent last word, and I think that certainly the tragedy of AIDS effect on the ridiculous is one of the greatest tragedies. But I just wanted to say something lighter, which is that my experience in going to a dozen or more shows that Charles staged, it's something that happened to me in those shows that has never happened before or since, which is when I came out of the show, my stomach was in pain from laughing so much. Those shows were just a nonstop laugh from beginning to end, and it was, and the stagecraft of them remembering Black-Eyed Susan doing that striptease with the hand puppet of the devil. They were sublime moments, but they were incredibly funny, and I was absolutely in pain for like a whole day after going to see Charles Loveland play every time.
I think maybe one more.
Thank you. First of all, I was much too young to take in the ridiculous. I've heard stories from one of my friends who was a part. He's right there. So thank you. This has been really helpful just to get more of a context, a historical context of what you guys were doing. And for me, that's very important as a theater artist. My question is, I know that Irma Vep came back, Red Bull had done a production, and Theater Breaking Through Barriers is going to be doing a production of Artificial Jungle. Do you know of any other ridiculous style productions that'll be coming back that we can see to at least get a sense of what you guys did and how it can live on?
I don't. I think
Take a mic.
I think that in the fall we're going to do Conquest of the Universe at La Mama, but we are doing. I was supposed to bring postcards and I forgot them, but for the Theater Breaking Through Barriers is doing the Artificial Jungle, and I've been directing it, and we open in 2 weeks, and it is the actors are so fucking great, and they're really going to do Charles proud. So. But I don't know of any beside that.
And just to close, what are the future of the Theater of the Ridiculous? What are your plans? Do you have ahead for next years or the years up?
I don't know. I don't know. It's what it is.
Which is a good way to go and to find things out in your tradition. Well, I hope you all will stay. We will have a little reception here. I know there are many more testimonies or comments that could have been done and should be heard.
But I also, excuse me, I want to thank Frank and Rebecca for getting this together. Thank you.
It really is a tremendous honor. So thank you. And 50 years, first 50 years are the hardest. So let's celebrate. It's a celebration of the life and work, of Charles, but also the company and everybody involved. So congratulations. And really, I would like to a very big standing applause for that company and what it stands for. Thank you. We will have a reception here in the room, so please.